Howdy. Yeah. So, we're on the set. Robotech meets the Transformers. Legacy of the Zorlords. Yep. This year's script is pretty funny. Have a script for a Robotech movie about a week before the Phantom A. A little less than a week. Don't know if we're going to the Phantom A officially or not, but we'll find out. We'll find out. I can always go to the outside of it and see the outside. Everybody in costume do that, but we'll see. But this Robotech here film is hilarious, and yeah, and well, Johnny the nephew was here. We did not discuss the Robotech stuff over a week ago, a couple of weeks ago. Now at this point, it was more like for the wake on the 11th and all that. A little bit before that. Yeah, so it's been over a week. Yeah, so we have so this Robotech story was written over the course of this week. He would be considered a consultant or premise inspired by or something. Premise by, I guess, yeah. We didn't really discuss Robotech the movie, although Kal Kat mentioned Robotech the movie earlier and did a review without using any footage from it. And this kind of morphed into what would happen if Kal Kat rewrote Robotech the movie from '86 so that it actually made sense. And that's what this ended up being. So it's like the early Robotech Masters, but in a slightly different timeline, like that was. It wasn't really canon because it had Megazone 2-3 in it. Let's just delete all the other goofy stuff that was in there and write a story where there's no space gods. They mention them, but they're not in there. There's the shapings is mentioned as something out there. There's no Invid in this one because we did plenty of the Sentinels did all the Invid stuff, and the other stories did all the Invid stuff. And when we did Space Bridge years ago, well, almost 10 years ago, we're in production in 2014 now, to come out in 2015 with Space Bridge. That one was also about that kind of thing. The end of the circle in Space Bridge. We've already done the story of how Rick Hunter comes home. Because, turns out, after some of the Japanese stuff was released here, that apparently the reason that there is actually some canon evidence that Rick Hunter and Lisa Hayes and Mid-May all disappeared during the Macross stories. But they're not during these. So there is some evidence that happened. And so we have that. Yeah. Instead of that universe going on to the Sentinels missions, which were dreamed up by Carl Macek and the Jack McKinneys, there were two guys, right? Jack McKinney. They were as Jack McKinney. They envisioned a story where we would follow the adventures of Rick Hunter and crew on the Expeditionary Force from their perspective as they liberated Tyrol, Phantoma, and Spherius, and Optera. Meanwhile, that would lead to all of the Robotech wars that happened. The Masters War, the Masters had gotten on ahead, they went to Earth, and then the Invid had gotten on ahead, and they went to Earth. And then they would arrive at Earth, and that's kind of what they did with the other... the Shadow Chronicles as well. They kind of said, okay, we're going to bring them, come back to Earth. They falsely promised the return of Rick Hunter in those commercials for that movie show, and the Sentinels. The books did bring him back. The books, The End of the Circle, and some of the other ones, post ones, did bring him back. They figured out how to do it in books. Transformers meets Robotech, our fan films, brought him back in the 2014 24-episode series, which was 3 mini-series chopped up into 24 episodes. So it was the three 8-part stories. Kind of like they do now with Netflix shows and Disney Plus shows. We did something like that decades before they thought of it. A decade before they thought of it. A decade before they thought of it. We brought Rick Hunter home. Said that no one, after he disappeared into the wormhole or whatever, in the other stories, he disappeared into the Transformers realm. He's hanging out with the Transformers. SDF3 is hanging out with the Transformers. The 2030s and then the 2040s in parts 2 and 3. So he did it twice. So yeah, and at that point, we knew the other stuff had come out. The 2006 Robotech Shadow Chronicles had come out. We already knew about it as we were producing part 2 of Transformers Meets Robotech, or season 2, in the middle of that, and we're like, oh well, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. We're going to follow that eventually and have Rick Hunter come home at the end. It's in the script. He comes home, and then we did the Space Bridge where he comes home there. The End of the Circle. We did a 90-minute adaptation of The End of the Circle as The Endless Circle. It's also on our archive channel, which is fun. All the Transformers, Transtech stuff is up there on the other channel as well. Yeah. I also saw the 1986 Robotech the movie. I also saw the other stuff. So in the other versions of Macross is not connected to the other 2 shows. They're not connected. The Robotech connected 3 different shows by the same animation company, Studio Nue. And they're like, yeah, we want to connect these together, and they really didn't go together. They were vastly different shows. They had vastly different robotechnology, and they did different things. Also, there's there's also Orgus, which was one of the 4th series they didn't use, which was very problematic. There's a reason they didn't use that one. And we can discuss, I guess, as I look at the script here. So Robotech was basically the Macross saga, and interestingly enough, from some backstory from that Secret Galaxy or Toy Galaxy, went back and looked at that too, and also came up with okay, this is what happened. Some other channels also went back and found out what happened, probably because Harmony Gold lifted the restrictions in 2021, said fan films and actual studios can make Robotech stuff. Because we're no longer interested. Armand Argama has died, and we don't care. Here, Studio Nue, do whatever you want. You can release Macross out here. Apparently, Disney Plus has offered to take up some of the Robotech Macross stuff. It looks like Plus and the Macross Plus and Macross 2, which wasn't very good, and maybe, but I doubt that it's going to do Frontier. Really, it's probably going to do the movie version of Frontier. Probably going to do the movie version of Delta. It's probably going to ignore Macross 7 entirely because it kind of can't. If it did the movie, that would be impressive, but they probably won't do the movie because of the love triangle going on in there. That would be a little bit cringe, as the young people would say. So yeah. So we have a Robotech story here. In the Macross saga over there, they continued it for several other series, with Rick Hunter and Lisa Hayes and Min May having disappeared, and Max Sterling and Miria in command of the ship, basically. And they go out and look for him, and by Macross Delta, they find the remnant of Lady M and her ship. Presumably Min May, who is on the ship, and there's like a fight between them. Also in Macross 7, the Proto-Devlin are related to that other expedition that went out as well. They've been zombified to follow them and get the spiritua. They really didn't. Their idea, because it's Japanese, is that they have this spirit force energy that's going on, the chi kind of thing. They're going to absorb it. It's kind of like the protoculture, but it's kind of more. It's like more. It's not a fuel. It's an essence more than a fuel. It's kind of Dune-like spice essence or whatever, kind of like Dune. And also the Pry essence in Dune. It's a lot of Dune. But yeah, so there were actually 4 series. There was, of course, Macross and Space Cavalry Southern Cross. Macross took place in the 2009 to 2012. Space Cavalry Southern Cross, which is the Dana Sterling stuff from Robotech. That actually took place in 2121, way off in the future, on a planet called Glory. You may chuckle now. Ha ha ha, glory. Ha ha. It sounds like glory hole. Ha. Yes. Yeah, and on this planet where they had tech knights and everything. And actually, in the Japanese version, which I've seen, it's reversed. They are colonizers who have come to a planet that's already occupied. So the masters, or the Zor Lords in that story, are actually trying to defend their planet against the humans who have landed on their planet and taken over like a virus. That's what's going on. It's a virus. It's an invasion. In reverse. That's why it seems weird at the end. And I was thinking about this earlier as the bare internal life gag with Dana. Well, when we were kids, when the show aired, we just assumed that, like, we didn't understand how sex had worked, obviously. And when Zor Prime, the clone, kisses Dana, we just assumed, oh, they're having a baby. Didn't make any sense. They weren't. That wasn't what happened. But yeah, that would they? Yeah, no. They never said that in the story. They never did that. But the Robotech people in Love Live Alive took up on that and said, oh, Lancer and Sierra have a baby. In our version later on in 2013 version. It's like, no, that's not what happened. That really is not what happened, because Cam Clark so much as said, Lancer's not straight. So, yeah, he would not be into Sierra at all. He would dress up as Sierra. He wouldn't want to be with Sierra. Yes. Oh my. But yes, that character on Robotech would be quite gay. Not interested in girls at all. And the Japanese are fascinated with drag queens. They always were. And pop stars saving the world and all that stuff. So you have that as well. The spiritual, the music energy, which they used in both Macross 2 and Macross 7. Macross 2 is not considered canon. It takes place in 2092. That's not considered canon. And then there's Space Climber Matsupieda, which is on an Earth that's been taken over by the Inbit that are looking to find evolution experiments. They're not after the flowers of life. In the Japanese version, they're just there creating them and harvesting them so that they can go back to their planet. That's basically what's going on. And the Mars expedition and the Jupiter expedition are not in any way related to Rick Hunter and all them. They're not related at all. They weren't in that story at all. They weren't even considering that. Those two later series were not considered as popular as the others in Japan, so they weren't as well known. There is a fourth series that is often not discussed, Space Climber Orgas, which is apparently the fourth series, and they didn't use it. It ran about one season. And in that one, they're building a space elevator on a devastated Earth, somewhere between the events of the Space Climber and the other one. And the Space Climber literally is a space elevator that they've constructed in that one. And they have these robots, and they go to another time where things are kind of messed up. It's a little bit related to Genesis Mesopeda, Genesis Climber. It's a little bit related to that. And this is like just before that. So it is related to that. And it would have tied in the Masters to the other one. Problematic characters and scenes. The Japanese are fascinated with the concept of the swarthy older man that's kind of or the nerdy older man, either one, a swarthy or nerdy older man who has relations or a senpai or a student with schoolgirls. They like that stuff. That's creepy as hell. But so in the story, our main protagonist, I can see why they didn't do this for Robotech. The main protagonist has a robot girlfriend who is essentially a child bot. And another one that's a girl, and there's a triangle. It's not going to work. No, that's just not going to work. Oddly enough, that concept appears in other Japanese anime. And the concept was done better in Ghost in the Shell 2. So they did it better in that one. Okay, we explained why the robot is the kid, because of what happened at the end of Ghost in the Shell 1. Ghost in the Shell 2, a little different. They upgraded it a little bit. But yeah, it kind of makes more sense there. It's like, okay, they're not going to have a relationship. They're just going to have, because that's weird, cringe. Well, they're just going to do what they do. So yeah, Robotech. So that's why they didn't use, that's one of the reasons they didn't use Orgas. That's why some of the stuff doesn't make sense in the Masters story is seems like they're kind of just adding stuff in the Robotech version, and they are. There were even some episodes where in the Invid Invasion one, where they would force a sort of desperado scene sequence on characters, such as the infamous Dusty Ayers Cowboy one, in which they missed the Robotech adaptation missed the concept of what was going on. It's basically a samurai. He's not a cowboy. He's a cowboy looking, but he's a samurai, and he's basically been ousted from his clan because the Invid ran off, which is kind of in there, but kind of not. The Invid took them, so it's more like the Invid took them and killed them more than that they ran off and deserted him. They took them and killed him. He's the last of their tribe. It makes it a little more make sense. His motivations for revenge in the story make more sense because he does that. Because in the Japanese version, it's like, oh, okay, he's a samurai that's been defeated. He can't go anywhere. That's why he's there. Okay, and the same with the Jonathan Wolfe stories. Oh, that guy. Same idea there. A little more traitorous, but the same idea. So you have the hunters and them, and interestingly enough, and I saw it, Macross Delta, the movie. I saw that at the Fanime, and I was like, oh, they brought back the ship. They found the ship, the original ship, the Mega Road, and the Mega Roads then have two big clone ships, and they fight each other because of course they would. Of course, two SDF ships are going to fight each other. That'd be how would you make this more dramatic than the previous stories? You would have the two giant ships fight each other. Of course, they basically Titans duking it out. Transformers would call them Titans duking it out. That you'd have to do that. The next thing they'd have to do is one of them would have to be the size of a planet. It'd be Unicron, basically. And Unicron is basically a celestial, but he's like a mechanical one. So, there you go. They're connected to Marvel, and they were connected to Marvel. So, yeah, there's not going to be anything cringe in this script at all. Every character in it is now of age. There's nothing weird going on. Legacy of the Zorlords. So this is an homage to the Zorlords, which were the guys from the Masters. This is just a fun comedy story. Just wrote the last 20 minutes this morning. That's how quick it took. And had a great idea and woke up and said, I'm just gonna hammer out the last 20 minutes, knowing how this is gonna play out. And it is only a few Decepticons and a few Autobots. Very, very minimal cast. It's 91 pages. Translates to about 90 minutes. It's 2032 in the story. It's a little after the crew had returned. I thought that after doing the Transformers Legacy trilogy, where they jumped ahead in the timeline and then the Zorlords sort of went back and the Primes sort of went back and messed with it. That in this version, at the end of that version, they said the Zorlord Primes messed with it and brought everyone back to where they're supposed to be. And the Sentinels weren't home yet. Nobody was home yet. Essentially, so it had flipped the script and said, oh, they weren't really home yet. They were just they were trapped in the Tesseract in this last part for an undetermined amount of time. And then they escaped. And the fun thing is, if you go back and you look at the original, the story of those three Sentinel stories we did for adaptations of the Sentinels last year, and so we're like, yeah, we did adaptations of Sentinels, and now we're doing this, but we have changed it considerably, made it more like fan fiction that was based on something else. And there were other stories it was based on. And if you look back at those Sentinel stories, it begins in 2025, not 2024. So the events of Transformers Legacy are before they even left. So they haven't left yet. They're on the SDF-3 and they get put in the Tesseract and have some fun and then put back. So you could take it that way. You could say, oh, they were in a simulation. Dream. You could say it was a dream. It was a giant snow globe. Yeah, why not? But yeah, so in that story, they get back in 2032, and in this story, it's 2033 in this one. So they get back from the mission in 2032 in time for the Masters to show up. And the Masters show up in this. Don't get your hopes up that it's going to be a massive space battle because I was determined not to rat that kind of thing. We've done that already. They make this more of a psychological thriller type of thing, but not with space gods this time either. It's not that confusing. They go down, they get interrogated a lot, go on missions and try to figure things out. Something's happening to their minds. They have to go around, go to the master's ship, do some things, invite the Autobots and the Zor bots along, do some things. So yeah, it's all canon with itself. It's sort of like the universe got reset at the end of the Sentinel saga anyway. Then it got reset again at the end of the Legacy saga. So now it's the Robotech Legacy. Now, and you can take all the fan films to be in their own part of the multiverse. Let's say, all right, well, maybe those events did happen to that group in Transformers Legacy. Maybe all those years went by. You could assume that too. You could say all those years went by, and now something else happened, and they went on the Sentinels mission. Slightly different group went on the Sentinels mission. It's kind of addressed in here. You kind of say, well, in this other universe, that the doppelganger thing happened. Yeah, and we're not quite them, but we're not quite these other guys either. Yeah, so that's how Macross was able to get away with doing all those other Macrosses on different ships as well. So kind of like, yeah. So there's the idea for this. Another fan film. Robotech meets the Transformers. So it's sort of a spin-off of the Sentinel story. It's, again, Rick Hunter and crew are officially home in this story. They are home. It starts off with dialogue on the opening page. You're a narrator guy. He says, I'm going to read this narration so you know Rick Hunter and crew are home, officially. It is the year the super-dimensional Fortress 3A returned from hyperspace. The legacy of the expeditionary force has come home. And so they find the Sol system not destroyed by an aggressive alien force, but rather with the Transformers that have stopped them. But somewhere out there, a strange new darkness waits for them. That's your hook. That's what you need. So, and I know that my fan films tend to tell and not show, but considering that you have plastic go-motion action figure comics, they kind of have to tell because there's very little showing. So there just is very little showing. It's not the same as a big budget movie production, say like a Zack Snyder like Netflix show, where they don't seem to get that concept. And yeah, what they mean when they say show don't tell in a movie is don't just over narrate everything and over explain it. Just show it. Just show us it. Yeah. Case in point, story scenario. Transformers the movie. Giant planet shows up in the suburbs of Alien City, starts jacking up everything and killing it. That's all you need to know. Something scary has emerged. Yeah. Cool. All right. You have an action picture where the bad guys rob a store in the opening scene. Don't need any dialogue there. Just they're gonna go in there and rob a store. Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that kind of thing. It is not show don't tell. Show like a bunch of random people. This is not show don't tell. This is not correct. Have them shucking corn and wheat like in Rebel Moon in slow motion. That's not show don't tell. That's just boring. Don't do that. That's not what that means. It's also not show don't tell if they have a bunch of characters in a room, like in Rebel Moon 2, discussing their backstories as though they're reading the script outlines for their characters. That's not interesting. If you're going to do that, have them do something interesting with it. Have them show how they're a badass, as opposed to just saying, "Yes, I'm a badass." Have them show it. Yeah. So yeah, one of them's a crack shot with a laser blaster or something. One of them has like fucking sword hands. Okay, fine, but what does she do with that? Or something. But if she didn't do anything with that, then what's the point? Or you set up a backstory with the samurai lady and the kid. And don't establish that there's some backstory there. It's just creepy otherwise. It's like, why is she hanging out with him? It's weird, just creepy. Maybe there should have been a line of dialogue in there saying, "Oh, you remind me of my kid that died in the space battle," or something. There, backstory. All right, that's why she's matronly toward that person. Yeah, if you don't show that, if you don't explain a little bit, but he doesn't get it. Snyder doesn't get it. In Robotech the movie, they have scenes where they've cut in Megazone 2-3 in there, which is weird. Okay. That doesn't work either. Yeah, using another movie to tell your story is a little confusing. Don't do that. Yeah, don't cut to the other guys. Don't have massive dialogue about the slain emperor or king guy and not show it. Yeah, just do that. Do like Dune does and show the emperor guy getting attacked and getting killed. Show that like they did in Dune 2. Where they're, okay, I'm going to go after the emperor. I'm going to fight him now. Then all right. Or Star Wars, the Emperor and trying to turn Luke to the dark side. They showed the scene. They didn't just tell it. They had them in the scene together. Like, we're gonna go over here. Do this and that. That kind of thing. So in this Robotech story, it does tell a lot, but it's not the same because this is Go Motion, and so we have. We have our main cast. Not too many people. That's not overwrought. It's not 3 hours. It's 90 minutes. It's a fun fan story nod to that universe. And since we've done plenty of Invid ones already, we don't need to do another Invid one since it's the Masters. We were hinting at it. Anyway. It's like a supplement to the whole thing. It's kind of like an OVA. They did those OVAs back in the day where they said, let's show a part of Robotech flashback and Love Live. Do you remember Love? Let's show an OVA of that. So that movie was basically a version of Robotech events 20 years later to make it look like it was. That's why it looked so advanced. It's supposed to be like 20 years later, and they were like fictionalizing and thus creating a multiverse for Macross in the doing of it. But yes, but yeah, multiverse also could be over-explained. So you don't do that with your story, with your fan fiction. You don't need to. With ours, we don't have filler in these stories. They go from one scene to the next, and you need to pay attention because in order for it to be a Go Motion comic, you kind of got to follow along, and which is easy to do with MP4 files on the channel because you can just select them, stop, come back. So it's sort of a pseudo sequel to the Transformers Legacy stories and to the Sentinel stories to send up a fun sort of thing, an anniversary thing, even though Robotech is technically anniversary next year, but Macross wasn't. So like I say, Macross, it's Macross 84. It's Macross. Yeah. So. And then there's some excellent re-uploads of Robotech the movie online. I don't know who did it, but they did a re-upload. It wasn't me. I wouldn't know how to do that. I only put my own stuff up. Or my parodies. We assumed that they would all be there, or that you might know where to find them. Yeah, we assumed it. It would appear the Decepticons do not know what the power matrix went. I just got reclaimed myself. I don't know anything about that. So there we go. It's very witty. Yes, I have not seen Unfrosted, but people are asking. I haven't seen it. It looks like shit, so I don't know if I want to see it. But there's another case where there's a case where they're being so meta with the jokes that, from what I've seen of reviews of it, that only they get them. That doesn't work. See, with this story, even though they're referencing Robotech jokes, every nerd out there, all the space geeks and dorks, is going to get the joke that the Decepticons are a certain way. it's known. The Autobots are a certain way. That's known. It's canon. Everyone knows who they are, so there's no problem there. So Autobot and Decepticon discussing with a Bioroid, discussing why the Decepticon's going to be evil. You know, you don't need to have that explained. It'd be like if Darth Vader showed up in a story, and it'd be like a robot chicken or something. You know it's Darth Vader, and you know what he's going to do. Sure, he's going to do something bad. Yeah, so same thing there. Or a heroic good guy shows up, and they can juxtaposition, make it a joke, and have the hero just do something that isn't good. But yeah, you could do that as a joke. Maybe he gets brainwashed in space or something. But yeah, so let's get on with the. We can probably start early pre-production, I guess, if you want. It's not at all on a schedule. Don't need to finish it in a week, or certainly don't. But it's something to do, and not spend any money this week. We're just doing a Robotech movie the whole week. I'm not going anywhere. Could do that, but yeah. So that is the early making of this film. I'm wearing a Transformers shirt. Transformers, more than meets the eye. It's actually from 2008. Between the movies, it's I guess it's from Dark of the Moon. I think it's from Dark of the Moon. Yeah. I think that's what it's from. 2008. Or that'll be Transformers. Not quite Transformers animated. Yeah, just a little before Dark of the Moon. Yeah, so it had a label. It's a 2008. So yeah, when you're doing your story, you don't. Yeah, we tend to do the fan films. Most of those lexicons and the other ones have been based on other previous scripts that have been rewritten to fit the canon. This one is not. This is entirely new. So yeah, a little bit of Johnny in there. Yeah, he's premise by. Yeah, premise and creative consultant. Even though directly Johnny did not contribute directly. He did not say, let's do this scene and that scene and do that. It was nothing like that. It wasn't a writing room. We just kind of came up with ideas and thought, this would be fun. Yeah. It's a little bit of a spoof of the Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes at the end, a little bit, because we did see that and review it. The only guest star on the show in years. He was at Brown Video Productions. He was a kid in that many years ago. But it's been ages since he wanted to be on camera. But then didn't want to do any more of the stuff. He didn't want to do a Transformer story. Just discuss it. So yeah, he's in his 40s. Anyway, so yeah, so there we are. There we are. So yeah, last year's Clint Cowpoke haven't done a day of filming. So I think for now, we'll end for the evening, and because the next scene, which is the back part of that chapter and into the next one, is a completely different set, or at least it's supposed to be, and it's the Decepticons meeting up with Jaxus, the clone, and stuff. So that's a different scene. I want to do that tomorrow, fresh. This is the second unit camera, and I'm going to do it fresh. So we have completed half of the 90-minute movie, so 45 minutes has been finished. If it was a Robotech episodes, there would be two 22-minute episodes finished out of 4 22-minute episodes. So it'd be 90 minutes, 45 for each, and then 90 minutes. Yeah, so there's 4 episodes. We did 2 of them so far. It's only Tuesday, or it's Wednesday. It's Wednesday, so. So that's awesome. So, this day was a good filming day, but I think we're done for the evening. Howdy. Get to do another one of these. It's been a long time since I've done one of those. I'm doing the other ones. I did some of the all Transformers Bush stuff, some of the corrosion stuff. Did some of that. Yeah, that's about back then. And yeah, and since I do things quick and efficient, I get to do this one. Either way, I'll do Silly Kelly. It's Clint Cowpoke instead. So yeah, we have yeah, we kind of shuffled together a little past a teaser onto page 10. Did some of the filming. The scenes are very abrupt and quick. It's a bit of a spoof of Robotech the movie and other things. It's kind of a spoof of itself and a character study of Rick Hunter, Lisa Hayes, Max Sterling having returned from space. What do they do now? And not to rip off Space Bridge, which also directed with the Marlowe hockey back in the day and Roadkill. Um, it isn't really that though. It's quite different. You have yeah, a story representing you know, Robotech guys having returned from the Sentinels mission. Okay, Rick Hunter and everyone's home. Even in this timeline, Rick Hunter gets home. And now what happens next? That's the story. See, we're actually ballsier than even the Shadow Chronicles was, because we brought them home way back in Transtech. This is Robotech, kind of Robotech meets the Transformers, because they are meeting Transformers in it, but it really is, it's just Robotech with some Transformers in it. So yeah, it's a Legacy of the Zorlords is the name of it. Changed the name slightly. This Legacy of Rick Hunter doesn't make sense. He doesn't die. The Zorlords sort of die. So that's their legacy. Yeah, we have no spoilers. But yeah, you've got to we meet the Masters. We've met the Invid a lot of times. We've done that story in several different versions, several different timelines. Now it's time to meet the Masters. What are they like? Turns out that they basically are caricatures of Cheech and Chong, which is funny. But yeah, I decided at the spur of the moment, okay, we've got this. Well, we got Headman from G.I. Joe, who was a stereotype of Cheech and Chong. So we decided that what if the two masters are literally supposed to be them? So it literally is them. It's Tommy Chong as the Headman, and Cheech there is the other guy. She is the legalist looking guy. It's funny. But yeah, okay. So then we have some other ones. We have of course McKee, who in the script is just McKee. I decided to be the Sarah robot. It's not really supposed to be Sarah though. It's the person that had Sarah not been turned into a simul agent. It's the person she was copying. It's the Mylene / other person / McKee person. Yeah, so it's not Marlene. It's Sarah. It's the one Lancer would be there. It's actually. I think you kind of mixed that up. Actually, in the series, I think we screwed that up. That should be Mylene, not Sarah. But yeah, I think we when in the series we called her Sarah, and it wasn't supposed to be. The blonde should have been Sarah. The redhead is Mylene. So it's Mylene basically. So McKee's last name, Mylene, was her first Mylene Rush, Marlene or whatever. Also is a McKee. It doesn't matter because it's a different character. It's just a figure playing her. Don't worry about it. It's the same case with the multiverse stuff. Don't worry about it. It's not important. Just how you establish it. I just wanted to say that's what's going on, and you don't really need a lot of explanation for all that stuff. It just does what it does. Goes in the direction it should. It's a Robotech story. It's a fun G.I. Joe's playing Robotech story. It doesn't have to have a lot of explanation. It just puts all the feels in there, puts it together. The idea of the Veritechs weren't working out, so they weren't used as funny. So they don't need to show a space battle with Veritechs, even though that's kind of Robotech. They kind of do that. This is more like Transformers meets G.I. Joe, and they all kind of were. But we just didn't want to deal with that. So it's a psychological exploration of the characters, with them going to different ships and things. All of the established sets and pieces are already there. Just use the stock footage, typical of Robotech, and do that. So there's nothing new, like the space cannon doesn't need to be fired or anything. There's a spaceship explosion thing and whatever. And yeah, so you don't really need to overthink that, and don't. Yeah, this is a lowest budget possible. Queen Bee Studios would be doing all the legacy stories, but then we just went back to calling it On Location Cat, because that's what it was. It was never a Queen Bee Studios. We called it that, and it wasn't some kind of dodge or grift. It was just that we called it that in honor of Mom. So that's what we called it. It was not Queen Bee Studios, but it was always On Location Cat. Went back to calling it that for the Star Trek one and for this one. So yeah, we have Robotech story. It's straightforward. It's there. We could do more shooting tonight, but I don't want to. It's getting later, so if we start earlier, we started late. We were intending to just do a teaser and ended up doing up to page 10. So yeah, that's a little more. And the next scene involves a little more thought to what the scientist robot, Wheeljack, and the other ones are doing. So I wanted to do that separately and differently tomorrow, just to make that look a little different. So some thought to it. It's only Monday today. It's only Monday, and sometimes we're able to crank out half of an episode in one day. But I don't know if we're doing that tomorrow. We'll probably complete most of part 1 of the whole thing. Well, we'll see. It's 30 more minutes. I mean, they certainly should be able to do 30 more minutes in a day. Should be able to. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see. Currently, it doesn't look like there's going to be keep mentioning the Phantom. Currently, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Oh yeah, it looks like maybe we'll drop by to the front part of it. Kal Kat will appear at the outside. Maybe. We'll see. So all during this production, we're all maybe not. We'll see. But anyway, we're doing this here thing. And now this movie, it doesn't have to be done, but we wanted to do it. So yeah. Started off on this real late. It's after dinner and everything. So knocked out about an hour of footage, I guess, roughly. About up to page 18, beginning of page 19 in the script. That would be nearly. I don't really want to keep going. It's late, or we could keep going. No, I'm not going to keep going. And so so we're almost to the end of the first half an hour, and there's a 90-minute story. So really, almost. So yeah, tomorrow full day of filming if we can get it. Not lollygagging around doing other things. Yeah, because I think we can at least get up to the middle of this thing tomorrow. So that'd be awesome. We'll see. Yeah, so, yeah, there's not much else. The Robotech guys, it appears that this scene that I just did kind of seems to contradict the other one with the talk about the proto-holster, but it doesn't really, because they weren't discussing how they felt. In this scene, they're discussing how they felt. So it works, because the universe has changed around them. They remember the changes in the timeline. So a part of them remembers them. So they're like, oh, yeah, what did this happen? And in this last part here, he's discussing with Lang, what happened to us? Are we still real? Because these universes were changed. So it works. It's not contradictory at all. And doing exposition when you have a Go Motion comic fan film spoof is fine. That's not an example of don't show, don't tell. That's you have to, because you have plastic figures that aren't moving. You have to tell. Otherwise, there's nothing going on. So, yeah, I mean, but it's fine. The dialogue is interesting. It's not like it's boring. It's interesting. It's very provocative. So there's ways to move things along, and they're giving you the backstory. And yeah, it's a little heavy, but you wanted to convey that this is not necessarily Transformers Legacy, but it kind of is. It's not necessarily the Robotech the Sentinels sequel, but it kind of is. So it's kind of its own thing. It's kind of establishing, okay, the characters are doing their own thing, and that's kind of what's happening. So So it's either or. Unlike when they did the Robotech the movie with Megazone 2-3 in '86, where they thought, oh, we'll just do a master's story and not explain why they're drastically different, because they used footage from Robotech Masters that they had left over, and Megazone 2-3 footage they had that cribbed, and that didn't go together. This one's a completely original script that's been written to fit the canon of the follow up to the Sentinel story. So that's mainly what it is. It's following the Sentinel story. It's sort of ignoring the other one, but it's sort of winking back at it and saying, well, actually, yeah, the Tesseract thing did affect you guys, but you weren't really in the future. So something did happen to you, but you weren't in the future. So yeah, those events did happen, but inside the altered state. And if you go back and read the Robotech books, they did stuff like that. Especially with the end of the circle. Yeah, so anyway, so yeah, yeah, and the Shadow Chronicles, the Shadow Children kind of stuff and all that. Yeah. Books and some of the Rebel stuff. Yeah. Macross and Robotech are a multiverse, in case you didn't notice. They always have been. Ever since the first 3 shows were stuck together, they're really a multiverse. They're so there you go. But we do it different than Marvel does it. We give just the right amount of story. Unlike, say, the Eternals, where they would be all, well, we need to spend an hour explaining. No, you don't need an hour. 10 minutes is fine. We get it. And then go on from there. Yeah. That's fine. Yeah, so that's good. Yeah. That's all for the evening then. This here's Clint Cowpoke. It's almost Mark's cards night, John night. So we're gonna complete the filming for the night, and put the dailies on the computer and be done here. We started late, and we got up to page 58, and that's a long way actually. Yeah. So yeah, there's a little over 32 minutes of script left. That's it. So yeah. So yeah. This is enough, I think. So, not much of a making of. They go to the master ship. They do that. It's reminiscent of Robotech the movie from '86, but done better, basically. Yeah. But Decepticons instead of Megazone 2-3, and Autobots instead of Megazone 2-3. Yeah. It's just a fun parody. Yeah. Okay, so this is Clint Cowpoke on Saturday during the Memorial Day weekend, and because went to the Friday, went to the convention, but only one day, and now we're back, and we're doing some filming on the set of the Robotech movie, and and we knocked out about 20 pages of it. 10 pages left, roughly. 10 pages left. So tomorrow we finish the Robotech movie. The last movie of the early summer, beginning of summer here. And just wanted to chime in and do a little making of, just to throw on the end of that. Which will kind of be weird because it'll be like added to the what's already there. So the gag in a nutshell in the story toward the end here. Well, you'll put them all together, and like the gag is that the Masters don't have a lot of a big army. We've kind of been doing that joke a lot with all Transformers Rush. Fun to do it here too. We're spoofing Robotech the movie in a sense, but we're spoofing the Robotech saga in general in the multiverse of Robotech and the multiverse of Transformers, and all of that jargon and technobabble is associated with that. And also we're spoofing the really bizarre, I guess you would call it a Mandela effect, because it didn't actually happen in either version of Robotech. In the Master Saga, or the middle generation of Robotech, and in the Japanese version, where they're on planet Glory, and they're actually invaders. The Earth people are invaders on the planet, which it's actually reversed, and invaders. Not uncommon with those kind of things. It's clearly a parable for imperialism and stuff like that. But yeah, so yeah, they were knights and stuff. So yeah, clearly it was. Yeah. It's a space samurai robot thing, knight things. So you had yeah. So in Robotech, the finale thing, the show aired in the 80s, the mid 80s, right smack in the middle of the 80s, 85, and and I was like 14 when it came on, a long time ago, and long time ago, and so we have yeah, it's a Transformers 84. So there was a so in the Masters Saga, is the middle series, was one of the lesser one. They made Robotech the movie out of it, but there was this scene where there's this character called Zor Prime in it, right? And he's a clone alien agent that they send down there, sort of a Manchurian candidate. Doesn't actually try to kill them at all. He's just got like PSTD basically. Before we knew what that was, actually it probably was the case for other people, but they didn't have a name for it in the 80s. Came to be called PSTD. That's what he had because he was sent down. The clone thing didn't quite work, so that's referenced in there. So Dana in the final episode, Dana and the 15th Squad help Zor Prime to find the Flowers of Life to stop the flowers from escaping, but they do anyway. And they have to go to the mothership and stop the mothership from releasing the flowers, which we'll call the Invid. Because they had to connect it to the Invid. Now, I know, yes, Robotech was not connected in any way, but they were connected as Robotech, Macross, and Southern Cross, and Space Climber were not. 3 different series. Yes, we all know that. That's the powerful. So anyway, this ending scene, Dana kisses Zor Prime, and could have sworn years ago, a long time ago, when first airing that show, and even discussed it with other friends on the bus and whatever, that Zor Prime whispered into her ear after he kissed her and said, "You will bear eternal life." He did not actually say that at all. That he did not say that. But we were 14, or some slightly younger. We probably thought that's a kiss meant they were having sex. That's probably, we just inferred that's what he said. He didn't really say that. He said because when they touched the thing, it was confusing because then the little sister, when she touched the protoculture thing, it showed her a vision of her little sister, but we didn't catch that at first. We thought it was a vision of their kid. We put those two together, even though there was not what happened at all. No, she wasn't pregnant. So there's a joke in this story, in the scene here, where the other guy, is coming out of his coma, and he goes like, G.I. Joe coma, haha. G.I. Joe the movie, and he goes like, yeah, very eternal life. She goes, I'm not pregnant. Stop that. It's stupid. It's like, which is also poking fun at Love Live Alive and saying, it's kind of poking fun at that. And any other series that says, the main characters have to have a baby now, because that's cute. Well, throw that in there. But in this one, it's not cute. And apparently, Miria is not in the story at all because she's off being pregnant with Marlene, who's going to be in Macross 7. That's not a sequel. It's not a setup for a sequel. That just happens to be the year that she would have Marlene. Not a setup for a sequel. 2032 or so. So, I don't know. 2032, 2033, somewhere around there. So, yeah. Yeah, and the Evil Max kind of sets that tone in there. I wanted to throw that in there as a gag. Although Cowpoke really doesn't do villain too well, I noticed. It's just, we're just out there going, he doesn't really do villain so much. He's kind of more of a trickster villain. She just don't do villain too much. Roadkill does better villain. But that's fine. For the story, it's supposed to be silly. So, yeah. And the Eastern European sounding Jiaxis is kind of funny. But yeah, the rest of them do their thing. It's just fun. So, yeah, very internal life. There's a mandala for you. That never happened. Yeah, not even in the Japanese one, which it makes a little more sense in that one. Because, like, she's grossed out after she kisses him now. Yeah, she didn't fall in love with him. She was like, eh. A little slightly different take there. Yeah, there's a scene missing. Yeah. There was no, they weren't pregnant. And she was not Dana in the other one. She was that balloon animals or something like that. Anyway, so yeah, there's that. We just wrapped principal photography on Robotech meets the Transformers 4. Now, I'll speak about it later. That's why The Eternals is a really boring-ass movie. Because it was like, oh, we're just going to explain that we were gods in the past on Earth and stuff. And we're going to show that and tell it at the same time. And have all of that stuff. It seems like it's way longer than it is. If I was doing that movie, I would have cut out all of that stuff. It didn't need to be in there at all. Just show up in modern day Earth and go, okay, you have powers. That's all we need to know. That's it. If you don't care about any of that other stuff, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if one of them is in Mesopotamia. It doesn't matter that one of them was in the jungle. It doesn't matter that one of them was doing that. Because they didn't use that power later on. They just don't use it. Then yeah, just cut that out. Makes sense. It's sort of like on Star Trek Discovery, they had a scene where they had this whole backstory in the middle of this episode about an alien shapeshifter thing. It was a Breen, and he's they show all his backstory with Maul and how they got together, and all that, his girlfriend, his alien, and it's like, no, you needed to put all of that footage, about half an hour of that episode, it was a little over long. Needed to put all of that footage in the pilot episode of that season and show us them there, not later on, because it doesn't affect what's going on later on. Yeah, she's not telling the hero captain that information. She's just fighting her. She's not telling her that. Oh, I loved him or whatever. She doesn't know that other stuff happened. And if she's being told it, that's boring. Yeah, so they were trying to do the show don't tell, but they too did not understand. And you put that earlier, because this other stuff about Saru and the Vulcan lady in that series, we don't care about that. That's just filler. We don't care about that stuff. That's filler. About our fan films over here at On Location Cats, Queen Bee Studios only briefly, because in honor of mom, but it wasn't technically real anyway. It's On Location Cats. That's what it was. It wasn't a drift or a tax dodge or something. It was just that we just called it it was On Location Cats the whole time. Yeah. Well, we're back. It has been over a year. We need one more person. Okay. Serious. Interrogations. Well, here now. No harm, no foul. She's an even bigger queen than... Oh my God. Really? Come on. You stood up there all night